walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super-states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
I present to you, first to chase power. Watching the city burning. Worsening conditions turn in a deterrent. Stopping people walking streets, we can see the resurgence of recurrent themes underneath the surface. They exist in inner workings, defeats the whole purpose of a democracy, cause it's deleted through purchase by self-proclaimed deities that wish to be worshipped. Things are looking bleak, journey with me, I'll show you what I've been observing. Chapter 1: The Butterfly Effect. I need to take you back to the genesis to understand the damage that happened after that incident when one man stole the last breath from a pregnant woman in a foreign land. It impacted the rest of us. But let's go inside the mind of this murderer. Hurt and anger, self-justified, so he tried to strangle her. The womb alleged another man's child, got him more riled up, killed 1.5, and so his line of crimes begun. Cause in order to cover his tracks, he ended up packing the corpse into a body bag. Coward act, plotting ahead, a psychopath, reckless, abandoned, panic, trying to hatch a plan. And so he searched the land for hidden, discreet spots, chances to dispose the mass of the flesh, decomposing fast. Hard to understand his madness, cause he just dumped the body and then he ran. Here's where the plot gets complicated. After merging her purse contents, he confiscated, then he returned to home turf. He thought he got away, but things got worse when he withdrew her cash so he could honor payments. This is important later, but first let's follow her parents on their search for traces. Flew to the island, found the latest known destination. Hoped it was a joke, instead their fears gained confirmation. Just imagine, daughter still missing, only left with information that 2 entered the hotel, only 1 left the vacation. Minds start racing, denying the implications of the suitcase footage. Something suspicious about it, no doubt the man was guilty. Authorities then scouted for the culprit. The man ran free in 852, cause jurisdiction switch subjected him to different sets of rules. Fool, all movements leave residue. Our case, catalyst for system to abuse. Opportunities to push political agendas. How so? These lines will connect the story for you. See, the shark can punish him for crimes that's not committed locally. Though after his capture he confessed all heinous wrongdoings. So instead of homicide convictions bringing penalty, he got off easy, just 19 months for money laundering. This case got exploited by lawmakers, used to expedite the forceful process of wrong partakers extradited to the mainland where the legal system can't be trusted. No way people will accept the crooked laws and justice. Chapter 2: Fire. She just had to start barking, which sparked the flame, so the spreading's getting started, cause growing concerns about blurring borders, aggressive door knocking made it hard to stay dormant now. Grassroots movement so it burns with ease, June 4 candle flame, further catching onto leaves. Just Stirred by the city's current trajectory, motivated protests adding people who took to the streets. Still no response. June 9th, million-man march, no response. Tried civil disobedience and peaceful demonstrations, but efforts all dismissed without hints of any concession. Instead, the bill pressed forward with its second reading. Meeting with the public at the time might have halted the bleeding. Trust towards the government quickly depleted. Evident new leadership was something that the city needed. So protests took matters into their own hands. Withdrawing the bill was initially the only demand. June 12 plans were to occupy the surrounding land and physically block the bill from being able to get the pass. But who would have thought on that day police would amass canisters of gas and reasonably unleash en masse, then provoking by using the description of riots. Should have took more caution with your rhetoric in times of crisis. Your excuses, yeah, we don't buy it. Yet you expect the protest to stay quiet. Oh yeah, to the police, what's inappropriate? Use of force, mistakes when carrying weapons that you can't afford. Who keeps you in check when your complaints counsel self-endorsed? Lacking repercussions, we see incidents that you distort. Obvious witch deals made behind closed doors. Hard to ignore, disproportionate cause of more gore than necessary. Your tactics are strongly abhorred. Independent investigation could have helped to restore some form of communication, but no attempts made to find those who are at fault. Videos show that it's beyond false accusations. Revealed the origins of corruption is at your core. Back to the main point of contention. You're toying with semantics when we ask you to withdraw. Just when I thought you couldn't possibly escalate it, you aggravated tensions by passing the new laws. Hammering nails into the coffin, trying to have our fate sealed along with the new SARS. Seems forlorn hope, but for now, weather the storm at all costs. The fire burning must prolong. Questions: who's the arsonist and who's the firefighter? Who's responsible? Let's trace back to who sparked the lighter. Bitch bark set the pigs as targets, playing the part as biters. Straights die afraid it may darken before it gets brighter. Chapter 3: Puppet. Time passed, but 0 for 5. Tell you why it's not over yet. Know that we don't blink, swine pigs leave the stein. Trying to brute force, bully public justice, submit to crooked politicians. Look, the city rotten up quick. But there's more than pork bones to pick with you incompetent leaders with selective amnesia. Keep pretending you forgot you like boost for connections. Must be stupid if you thought you were actually elected. And that air of arrogance that you carry yourself with will disappear when you notice you're no longer protected. Make no mistake about it, you're just some hand-picked puppet fuck faces. But that's the crux of our predicament. The one pulling the strings is running a dictatorship. Puppets get replaced for disobedience. To compensate, you went out of your way to try to please with gifts. Or perhaps you're pleading for forgiveness while he's holding both a hammer and a sickle in his fist. Or maybe you're just being tricked, but given your record, I highly doubt your innocence. Regardless if you happen to be a victim, the results were the same as if you were complicit. Same masters will control the actions of the next one. Your damage made it even harder to fix this. It's tragic how you force us into integration, dismissing the reasons to preserve the distance, and your schemes to rapidly alter a system means that we're going to be misrepresented. That's the reason for attempting to sever the strings by pushing for universal suffrage, instead of letting some puppeteer have the final decision on the liars that we're stuck with. Not expecting a utopia, it's just to give a chance to someone who deserves to be trusted, and develop a structure where we could be able to make adjustments in the case of corruption. Cause right now it doesn't function. Had enough of this. You caused an exodus and showed no remorse for it. How many students you jailed? How many people you failed? Dark-hearted bitch causing pain when we need truce. Scarred by the blade, left with marks and some bruises. Target is changed, so don't get it misconstrued. Half of the 5-0 and it's time to start anew. Chapter 4. Reflections. When things get dire, do you fight fire with fire? Continue standing firmly, or should you just retire? Turn a blind eye, forgive prior misfire, or stay eye for an eye and escalate it even higher to these questions. Definitive answers mean you're misguided. Challenge your own mind to balance out the bias. Try to navigate the sides and unintentional liars. Entire truth divided, so it's up to you to find it.
Does forced silence justify violence as a retort?
Desires to be heard, protest pushed to last resort.
At the same time, where do you think the line should be drawn? When met with greater force, should you reply with Molotovs? Were some of the later protests diverted from the court?
But a change in circumstances give license to ask for more.
Or is adding for demand shifting the goalpost and it's flawed?
Or should authorities' blunders mean the blame's on them by default?
Fault finding's common and it leads to getting lost, cause finger pointing's easier compared to admitting wrongs. Who drew first blood? Will that truth even help resolve? The problem's far deeper, meanwhile everyone takes a loss. But is everybody equally willing to pay the cost? Cause inadvertently all people have to get involved.
Does that mean everyone's forced to join and play to a mob? And is it fair to use the outliers to discredit the lot?
Now question, is every police officer a pig? And is every yellow helmet for the cause?
The real frauds using the taxes to fund their riches, while fumbling the police and protesters like they're pawns. Should certain situations warrant the breaking of laws? Does guarding the floodgates from opening deserve applause? Looking at the limits that certain people have crossed has me wondering how much further can we fall. I need a pause. Things got out of hand, feeling like I'm losing grips on true or false. Double standards show domestically dysfunctional. Are there alternatives besides go international to attract attention? Why is negotiation out of the question if we're dependent? Why the mutual accusations of acting aggressive? The separation comes from inherited perspectives.
They say to never bite the hand if they're the source that feeds.
What if ideologies is what you're supposed to eat? They make a mockery whilst you're busy dodging debris.
What's really left if they start taking your identity? Tell me what's free.
Chapter 5. Control. Regulation plentiful, censorship is pivotal, control division.
It can't be in their principles invincible, only by dictating things that's sinful. Rinsing thoughts slowly through directing where the clicks go, selective with our picks, choosing who, releasing info. Read the double think, spread freedom is control. Being in the middle split makes it much harder to prosper. Pledge your loyalty and will grant you power to conquer. Keeping wallets full, reliable way to pocket the rich. In and out of shadows, but rules to run through our iron fist. Growing opulence, giving illusion, a loosening grips. Subconscious propaganda influencing populace, it's obvious. Only we can preach a sacred point of view. It's implied they're not to seek what we don't want them to. See, outside they're the beasts, they're all despicables. So watch on when they speak, their tongues will hiss at you. Align the ideologies, find potential problem seeds. Try and speak with honesty and you'll become our enemy. So don't oppose the party and keep the apathy up. Peasants. That's the book of tricks that they invented for perspective their beliefs. Defeated in a question, would true strength really be so easily threatened? Hence, you see why opposition arrested. Their methods of deception, weaponizing incentives, show the cruelties of living under big brethren. And whether or not we can prevent this will determine the extent we get affected. See, birds born in a cage will think flying's an illness. Words indoctrinate with time, ridding the realness. Obedience is what you read between the lines. That's the underlying message found disguised behind unity. So bow down to 2CP and its mighty rep. Corruption running deep under that shiny checks. Know the price of speech is not free, so be cautious when you speak, even in quiet jest. What's the aftermath after the batches of adults practice self-censorship and stop free flowing of thoughts? For sake of survival, only very few get to go out of their way to hold them accountable. New generations raised to stay neutral or keep their heads low, stay aloof. Many know their efforts is futile, so they play muted, preserve their roofs. Especially if their roots is deep poverty stricken, and you'll choose to give away your speech in exchange for food to eat. Hence hidden problems, cause in the moment, long-term damage is quite hard to see what happens. Trading off your rights to disagree. Everything gets tilted, favoring powers that be. Forced labor methods used to power the machine. When granted one option, have to take the bribery. And so initially, silence born out of necessity. Now the forces happen, status quo's not to be challenged. Strategy is planned for them to go and take advantage. Use the clean slates to reset the moral standards from the upbringing. All are taught a few things not to bring up. Plus for power seekers, quiet's used and pray to gain trust. Taboo topics revise history to save faces. Fear of losing freedoms, we don't want them to replace us and alter the education minds get invaded. Narratives one-sided means the future generations learn an incomplete version of their identity. That's why you see concern from those that they call state enemies. If you think majority of people are pro-government, then let the people go express their stances through the vote. But no excuses given to veto the covenants. One of many reasons current control should be over. Chapter 6. Power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Few renounce the crown when risen above reality. Addicted to superiority, forced allegiance derived from fears of treachery. Friends blending in with the foes, ascending hierarchies. Animals follow their instincts, acting predatory. Jealousy is the curse that killed morality, as everyone clashes to build their own fantasies. Absolute power is sin, greed and gluttony. Hard to satiate the few whose power hungry. Content is the concept that gets rejected repeatedly. Instead, common indulgence on excess and luxury. How much food is really necessary on that silver plate? Ego and power always mutually contaminate. True strength is trusting the reasons to separate the power, inhibiting those who try to accumulate. Power needs to be decentralized, ever corrupting's how it's naturally incentivized. Opinions may collide with the sides, becoming polarized, still more desirable than permanently forced to abide and hide from your thoughts, stripped from your pride and decline as you rot. Power over eyes kept blinded and locked. Power over mind getting tied up in knots. Rise of the tyrants disguising their plots. They're unchecked so no denial needed even if they're caught. Plus, it's hard to cut ties if they're bought. Just question the profits guaranteed the money talks. Absolute power corrupts through monetary. Profits is a problem if strings linked to authority. Avarice encourages obtaining through dishonest means. Easy to deceive in times of scarce integrity. Next, beware monopolies on information. Its interests always acting in self-preservation. Use education to shift where boundaries demarcated. Dissidents insidiously become marked and hated. That's the misuse of power. Eliminating those who critique the existing problems. That's the misuse of power. To get you to cower. Without change, power structures turn maleficent, taking benefits but masquerade benevolence. Amidst the games where internal struggle for prominence, overshadowed by systems fighting for dominance. Human nature goes at great lengths to prolong the raid. Casualties dismissed always in the name of retaining power. Vain maintaining order to resist chances of change in case it alters the ways they're accustomed to use regaining. Cowards when empowered self-promote to puppeteers, cause people fear the powers who abuse power of fear. These are the patterns that constantly reappear. How to break this vicious cycle's becoming very unclear. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Perhaps the best answer is just to have humility, cause lost in this world are the victims of vanity, who in pursuit of power forgot their humanity. Chapter 7, 2047.
I mean, truthfully, in my mind, I live in 2047.
You walk out of this room and into the future. Not one that might be, but one that will be. Let this chronicle serve as a lesson for all time.
Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete.